Well, good morning and welcome to the Women's Business Collaborative webinar on career pivoting, also known as reinventing yourself. My name is Jackie Woods and I will be the moderator for this event. And I'm really excited to be here today with my colleague and ex-boss, our guest speaker, Nick Castides, to talk about career pivoting with a focus mainly on pivoting within your own organization. Because that's where you can, I think, make the biggest impact. Now, there's lots of pivoting. You could pivot outside the organization. You could end your career, start a whole new career. But what we want to do is take a look at the benefits of pivoting within your own organization to broaden your exposure, to increase your reputational brand, and get you, into a position where you're noticed at the very top levels of the organization. So before we start, I'd like to say a few words about our speaker today, Nick Castides. Nick rose through the ranks over a tenured career that spanned continents and lines of business to become UPS President of Information Technology from 2011 to 2021. He's globally recognized for leading the development of multiple technology innovations that have disrupted and transformed supply chain logistics and the transportation industry at large. During his tenure at UPS, Nick also led the company's digital transformation program, the technology architecture for the world's largest automated sortation facility, which is our WorldPort facility at UPS in Louisville, Kentucky, and the logistics platform that powered the Beijing Olympics. Nick served on the company's Venture Investment Board, Information Security and Data Privacy Council, and the Aviation Security Council and Technology Governance Committee. Currently, he serves on the board of directors for First Student, North America's largest student transportation company, as well as the board of directors for Motion2 AI, a global supply chain mobility and robotics AI platform company. Nick is also a senior advisor to Tech Mahindra and is an industrial advisor to EQT AB, a publicly traded global private equity firm. Collectively, Nick has over 20 years of global M&A and venture experience supporting due diligence, divestitures, joint ventures, and post-merger integration for transactions up to $10 billion. He also has a passion for community serving on the board of directors for Points of Light and as an advisor to the Conrad Foundation. Nick also has served on nonprofit boards for Toolbank USA and Hands On Atlanta, where he is a resident. Please give a warm welcome to Nick Castides, our distinguished speaker today, as he shares his real-life experiences in making critical pivot decisions throughout his career that supported his upward trajectory. So I'd like to keep this interactive. You're going to meet Nick, you're going to talk to Nick, and we want to have it interactive between Nick and I and you as the audience. So if you have questions at any point in time, please post them to the chat box or the Q&A box, and my colleague Evelyn Anderson will interject them where they're appropriate in our talks with Nick. So moving to the next slide. So, we're all aware that innovation, especially in tech, is moving so rapidly to include new technologies that are enablers for future transformation. So it's really not enough to stay in your comfort zone and continue to remain at the same acumen or even increase your acumen within your vertical. If you're in tech, if you're in the business function, for example, if you want your career to advance, you really, of course, have to keep yourself relevant, but also moving into other roles and other functions within the organization can really power your career to different levels. So we're going to discuss throughout this whole presentation the benefits of those kind of movements within your organization and how career pivoting can increase your potential for growth, advancement, or even open a completely different career path. For example, if you're in tech, you go to a business function, you like it there, that may be your new career path. So Nick, would you like to start by maybe sharing some of your own experiences with us?
Yeah, so hey, Jackie, first of all, thanks a lot for the intro. My mother would have been proud of that intro. I think a couple of things. One is, first of all, it's great that you get to bring a group like this together to really, listen and learn about career development. It's interesting. I will tell you a little bit about UPS, unintended movement in my career. I was quite happy in the vertical of IT, being moving up the career ladder. up to IT, to some level of leadership in IT. And one day I was asked to move to our corporate strategy group, which is actually how I got to Atlanta. I was the person that if you gave me 100 people, you gave me a few $1 million, I could deliver software. Was with the company for 7 years and was highly interested in why I was making this move. And I got to the corporate strategy group and realized it was nothing like what I ever did for a living. It was mergers and acquisitions. It was venture investment. It was truly driving where the company was heading, what businesses we would be in. And in my very first lunch with my peers, I couldn't speak the language of the business of this company that I spent 7 years at, because I was an inch wide and a mile deep in my vertical. And so which by the way, took me way out of my comfort zone. I got really nervous at that lunch that I wasn't worthy of the role. But what ended up happening in that role, I spent 4 years in that group, is it provided me an education that I could never have gotten in my silo of the organization that I worked in. I learned about mergers and acquisitions. I did venture investment. I got to lead small P&Ls that I probably would have never gotten to lead when I was in the IT group. And it wasn't a planned transformation, a planned pivot. It was the organization had an opportunity that they asked me to go to. And to be honest with you, that is the single opportunity that allows, I guess, Jackie in that opening to say that today I'm a director on boards. Today I advise public and private companies and I advise investors. But what she didn't say was that I was an IT guy or gal or person, because my pivot out of the corporate world is what I learned in that one role. And it was transforming companies and growing companies. And that's what I've kind of become in this later stage of my career.
So next, we're going to talk about some of the benefits and specifically focusing on like broadening your knowledge across the organization. So if your pivot is within the organization, which again is what we're discussing here today, broadening your knowledge across the organization, as Nick has alluded to with his movement to corporate strategy group, is essential, and it's necessary to increase your value to the organization. So if you're, as Nick said, an inch wide and a mile deep within your vertical, that's great. And you're doing, you might be doing great in your own vertical, your tech function. But the more you know about the organization, the F&A function, the strategic function, the business function, even, you're going to be more value to your organization. So even if pivoting doesn't lead to a promotion, enhancing your skill sets or your tool belt, if you will, is going to offer you more opportunities within your organization and may even lead to something, a career path that you never imagined that you would go down, and you may stay there, and that may be your new best move. So certainly a deep knowledge of all functions within an organization will make you an excellent candidate for forward movement, and again, could offer you some more personal satisfaction. So Nick, could you share some of your personal experiences on why broadening your knowledge across the organization is so important?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. One is, we keep talking about being in a function, right? We all have a role. We're all a profession of some type. We're in IT, we're in finance, we're in marketing, we're in sales. And as we're coming up in our organization, the leaders that we meet typically are in our profession. And so, and I know, we may talk about this a little later, but moving into other disciplines provides you access and visibility to other leaders in other disciplines, which frankly, in meetings in companies where they talk about people and career development, it will also provide another voice at the table that's not the traditional voice, right? But Jackie, you made a really an interesting point there. I mean, there is the question of learning the business, right? And moving into another unit because you can see similarities. And you can also understand the challenges and opportunities that they have. So many times when we interact across departments, we're critical of other departments. And you get a really good appreciation of working in those organizations when you're there. But I'm going to go way back many years to my very first IT conference. When I graduated university, I went to a technical conference the company sent me to. Never been to a conference. I was excited because there was free food and free liquor, basically. Never had that before. But they had a keynote speaker in the opening. And I remember the session. I actually don't remember the name of the conference, but I remember the keynote. This is like 37 years ago, so I'm dating myself. But the keynote was about career development. And the individual talked about how people, and I was reflecting this because I just graduated university, went to school to become, and in my case, a programmer or an accountant or a marketer or an engineer. But they didn't go to school and took a curriculum that said, when you get out of school, you'll be the junior CEO. And 2 years from now, we'll promote you to CEO. It doesn't happen that way because the CEO who sits at the head of the table and has to really have an interactive dialogue with all of the disciplines around them to make those decisions has to have a breadth of experience. And so the one thing I took out of that keynote was that in order to truly execute your full potential, in order to move into a broad leadership position in a company, you really have to touch in some different way multiple roles in the company. And you get to understand your business, the levers of your business in a way that a lot of people don't. And when you look at a CEO's resume, it floors you because it may start out as, I was in business development and I was selling shoes for Nike for the first 2 years. And then I had this interest in learning about the marketing and the branding because I wasn't really pulling deals through so well. And I took a role in marketing. And that was very interesting. And we had created some stuff that we needed some ideas, some patents on. And so I took an assignment in the law department, and I'm not even a lawyer, right? Those experiences truly round people out. And so when people are looking at candidates, even in their own function, for the next opportunity, if all things are equal, that ability to show that your internal network is broader, to be able to show that your internal acumen is broader than the function, to be able to understand that the levers of the business that move the needle in your business outside of your function, what they are and how important they are, is truly a differentiator. And even if two of the best programmers competing for a programming job, someone looking forward to say, who are the future leaders, will look at the person that has spent time not in their own comfort zone or in their own lane, if you will, So that's hopefully that answered it, Jackie. These are pretty long-winded answers. So
no, it was great, and I just wanted to kind of add that an interesting artifact, I guess, if you will, of our organization, UPS, where we both worked for 30-some years. The CIOs that I had the pleasure of working for in my tenure did not come from the tech function at all. They were F&A. They were from finance and accounting, most of them. And our last CIO that we worked for was from the IE, industrial engineering function. So when you talk about pivoting, those folks pivoted in a major way from their core competencies to other areas. So it's just, the fact that they didn't have tech as a core skill set didn't matter. They were excellent leaders, and they led the organization through some very transformational times. So, broadening your knowledge across the organization and taking those kind of positions, across the different functions, it puts you right in a sweet spot of being recognized for that next high level position.
Well, and it's interesting what you just said, because large enterprises like UPS, like Evelyn is from IBM, mid-sized companies and small companies provide different types of those kind of opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. But what you do see at the top, you talked about the CIOs of UPS. Every C-level position at UPS is not what it seems. So our former chief of sales, when she had the chief of sales role reporting to the CEO, what you probably didn't see publicly was that the president of the largest services franchise in the world, the UPS store, reported to her. the president of our financial institution, our bank, reported into her, and the president of our healthcare business reported into her. Oh, by the way, she had sales and solutions, right? In a mid-sized company, you have cleaner lines. And in a startup, it's almost like the enterprise. The people at the top are doing everything, and it gives you that experience, right? But I gave you this example, not my example, but this individual who was chief of sales, because recently there was an organizational change made at UPS. And now that person is now in consideration for the next chairman role, because they were just given the operating responsibility that has nothing to do with sales. They have our supply chain operations. They have our international businesses. And that's what they're responsible for. Double-digit billion P&L to see if they can run the triple-digit billion P&L called UPS. But they spent their life as a marketing and sales professional and then took on opportunities to learn P&L management. And I got to say, from a ringside seat that I have now, that's paying dividends. And that person can go toe-to-toe with any operator, any business development person, and any marketing person in the C-suite, I can imagine. So,
yeah. So, for this slide, we've kind of already covered the benefit of, broadening your knowledge across the organization. Nick very eloquently explained a very, very good example of how, just your knowledge and it may be daunting at first to think that, oh my gosh, do I have to know all these different functions and go deep in them? Well, when in a large organization like UPS, the answer is you have to know them. Do you have to go deep? No, you have people that are deep, but you have to be able to address and guide them and lead them in ways that they can appreciate and respond to. So looks like we have a question, Evelyn.
Yes, we do. We just staying on that same topic, Nick. One of the questions that came in was on the point of broadening your knowledge across your complete organization resonates, very well with them. They wanted to understand what, in your experience, are the signs indicating, that you need to pivot, and any tips on how they can figure out the right skills necessary to succeed at the top level within that role.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why people pivot. One is they picked a discipline, were really excited about it, went into the business world, and it doesn't excite them. It's just a personal choice. I'm very frustrated with my job, not with my boss, which is the number one reason why people leave jobs, but I'm just unhappy with the career path. The cool thing about an enterprise, a large enterprise, is that you can probably job hop into anything. So there's a moment where if you're unhappy with the chosen career, you should begin to look left and right at tangential opportunities. So for example, marketing and business development people may think about IT, and they may take a tangential move and become a product owner for the development of a new digital solution, right? Which powers a new product. That's one way of pivoting. The other way is, if you're, you do have to start off in a discipline, in a lane, and start to work your way up and do different roles. So, I'll use finance because I chair, believe it or not, as an IT person, I chair the audit committee of a $4.5 billion company, but we use finance as an example. There is audit, the internal audit group. There's the treasury group, right? There's all these different groups. And if I'm a finance person, if I want to get well-rounded, as I grow in the organization, I will move into these different lanes of finance. I may take a stint in audit, which is a pivot, so I can round myself out as a finance professional. I may move over to finance reporting and understand all the things that are important to the organization that they measure and manage from a finance perspective. I may take a role in investor relations, all lateral moves at what I would call the single contributor level to learn those roles. When you start to get into management, that's really where, and if you're happy with your career and you can start to see above, you can see the ladder and you can see there's a director, there's a vice president, there's a president, there's a chief. At that level, it's the moment that you also recognize as a manager that you're not only interacting with your own function, that it takes a village, right? You're working with legal, you're working with marketing, you're working with sales, you're working with IT, you're working with engineering to get things done. And it's a collaborative, and you don't really understand them too well. I always think that at that manager level, it's a great place to begin to take on a responsibility outside of your comfort zone. Because the one thing you will learn is that management is management. People are people. They could be engineers, they could be software professionals, they could be lawyers. At the end of the day, they're humans with lives that have to be scheduled, that you have to communicate policies to. And that allows you to round yourself out as a manager to see that your leadership skills, and you'll get confidence in that, transform themselves. So I always think that if for a mechanical reason, I really want to do more finance, less IT, I want to do more digital, less marketing. As you're moving up the ladder, if that doesn't move you early, when you get to that manager role, that's the time to look at different lines of discipline and look at different experiences. But I would say this, don't let the grass grow under your feet, because yesterday I started to mentor, volunteer. Somebody introduced me to this woman who has been in a company that has been in every marketing department. And for a period, she had P&L responsibility over a product. So her career goal is to be a CEO someday. The challenge is her resume and her experience says, I am a really seasoned marketer and I could be a marketing leader, but there's nothing in there that would make me think that I could move them to a different job, to go run the supply chain division of UPS as an example, as an operator. So, in her case, it's a little, she's moved around a lot. This is a 20-year career. Now she's trying to reinvent her persona to carve out the way she articulates herself, the things that are more general business. The problem is her resume doesn't match that because she didn't start to pivot early enough.
So I wanted to just add that you mentioned at the management level, that's a good time to start, which it absolutely is, because you've got the experience, you've got some good experience under your belt. But even prior to getting to the management level, taking on special assignments, for example, a mini form of pivoting, let's say. We call them special assignments at UPS. I don't know, what the industry term would be for that. But I mean, just, a 3 or 6 month assignment in a different function that brings you back to your main role, but gives you that exposure to let you kind of, put that under your belt and wait, when you get to the management level, then you have, you've got some more experience to propel you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my illustration earlier, large enterprises and startups have give you the opportunity to take on special projects, initiatives. In the case of a startup, just stuff's falling on the floor and they're like, hey, you take on the HR stuff, because there's nobody else around. I think that is very important. And I would also tell you that it's like when pivoting your geography, because the one thing I've also seen is people that begin to move around physically in their career, move geographies, right? It teaches them certain things about their flexibility, their ability to take on more. Two people that get promoted in a company, and one moves to Chicago and one moves their desk 3 feet away. The person in Chicago is moving their family, they're getting their kids in school, they're trying to find new doctors, they're buying and selling a house. Yet, each and every day, they're under the same pressure as the other person who just had to move their desk 3 feet away, right? But it's what I've noticed over my career is people that have moved early also physically, their homes actually also are more tolerant of risk. So when this new opportunity comes up and they go, hey, you want to run this project? And you go, man, I don't really run projects, but I certainly can. And oh, that's a product development thing, and I'm a finance person. You're less you're more open to the opportunity because, you're all about risk. So I think to Jackie's point, taking on these assignments early. I would also say taking on opportunities when you're not held down by family responsibilities and things like that to move with the organization. We have a position for you in Chicago. You know what? If you don't have a home and you don't have children and you don't have parents to take care of, I would go take that opportunity, because 10 years later, you won't be able to take that opportunity because you have children in school, parents to take care of, a mortgage to pay. So those micro pivots, if you will, basically it's just all about taking on as much diverse experience and opportunity as you can. Every time the door knocks, I'd walk through it. That's what you need to do, basically. Excellent. Or somebody knocks on the door.
Staying on that topic, there was a question that came in earlier regarding special projects, where they noted that they can become people often tell them that they can become a career killer and that they should actually avoid them at all costs. And they wanted you to kind of expand on your position. And you answered some of that at the end of that, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to expand.
Yeah, no, I think so. There's a couple of pieces to it. One is those projects give you organizational visibility that you don't have. You will interact with people, peers, subordinates, and leaders that you don't have an opportunity to interact with. And so it is a positive from a career perspective, because in the moment, it may be your only chance to be profiled with a bunch of other humans in your company that you don't normally see. That is a pass or fail, though. People will form opinions of you in that assignment. That's one thing. The other thing is you don't want to make special assignments a career, because then what you are is you're the mercenary. Hey, there's a problem and we can point this person there. Later in my career at UPS, I was promoted to vice president in IT. And the vice president level, we had many titles for it over the years: senior director, vice president. I don't know, I had 300-400 people, whatever responsibility, X number of divisions. And I was asked to run some type of an IT transformation, create a couple of practices, change our method, really disrupt the way we're doing IT inside IT. And I was given a group of special assignment people. And there was like 6 of us. And the organization was doing all the work, right? We were driving the organization. But if you looked at my job model, I didn't have the number of humans, the budget that I had responsibility for. But I had a very important mission. So the visibility I got from that very important mission was valuable. The thing that I needed to make sure was that I didn't stay on the very important mission for 5 years. So it's very important to understand there is a window to make success in those projects. There's also a time, much like with any other move in your career, when we've gotten the phase down that we were brought in for, it's time for us to that move out. Because you can become that mercenary. And then people will forget what discipline you came from. And early in your career, the only way you get promoted really is through the sponsors, the leaders of those disciplines. So if you're on a special assignment, someone goes, man, they're really good, I want to make them a director. They go, well, they came from the finance department. Let's talk to the finance department. And they say, well, in our function, we would have never made them a director because they needed to have these 2 other boxes checked. So it's really important to get back and check those boxes. That's just the reality of the way companies operate,
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for that insight. It's true. Good on a small scale. Don't become a mercenary. All right, we're going to move on to the next slide. And some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive because we've covered a lot of ground already. As we know, networking is one of the most important things you can do in your career, inside, outside the organization, no matter what. This is the visibility that you get and the contacts that you make really help you make good career decisions in terms of where you want to be. So as you pivot through different roles, and your cross-functional footprint is going to increase dramatically. And the more people you meet, even outside your organization, your knowledge base, your interest level in perhaps other functions is going to, you're going to have a lot more to go on as you make those decisions. So that's going to provide many opportunities to increase your networking within your organization as well. So, it's just a basic given that networking is a key. So, Nick, what advice would you give the candidates who want to, need to network, and what does that do in terms of opportunities for candidate selection for potential advancement?
Yeah. So, networking without campaigning, right? There's a difference.
Right.
Got to make sure I use the right words. This is a human resources kind of call, but you don't want to be seen as sucking up either. I guess that's the best way to say it, right?
That's so true.
But inside an organization, to get things done, and through your various assignments, you run into people. And what happens is you run into them, you run over them, you run past them, but you don't connect with them. You needed them for a transaction. I'm on a project, I need the procurement guy or gal or whoever the individual is to help move the ball forward. I pick up the phone, they move the ball forward, I never call them again until I need them. And so it's important to build those relationships, because within an organization, in order to get things done, to be this, to look like the person who's agile and can get things going, you need others. And so you need to cherish those connections, right? But not just, not just the internal ones, because we're so busy at our jobs every day that there's a lot of people that come at us to sell us things, right? Because we work in large companies, to pick our brain, et cetera. And when we're busy in larger companies, we don't take the time to meet individuals. And what you find later in life in business, so if you were here earlier and Jackie introduced me, and you heard that over the last year, nothing I do looks like UPS. It's private equity, it's mergers and acquisitions, it's advising the C-suite of different types of companies. In order to do that successfully, I have to have a network. And I'll be very honest with you, because of my title and my brand, I pushed the external network away for many years because I thought everybody just wanted our UPS wallet. And 3 years before I retired, I spent a really good amount of time engaging in conferences, speaking in events, like this one, meeting people, taking note of who they are, and having a follow-up conversation to see if we have commonality, because you never know who you're going to need, And internally, it's good to have a lot of people know your name through interaction, good, bad, or indifferent. You could create a bad reputation, that's on you. But if you're really good at what you do and you've got good ethics and it's, then the more people that see you, I think that's important. But it's also, don't forget, every human that you run into, the person that works for you today could be your boss tomorrow. The person that you're joking with in the cafeteria and telling all these stories about the company and how terrible it is, and you're all yucking it up, they could be your boss tomorrow and doing your performance review. And so it's important to know that every human that you touch in the workplace plays a role in your career. And even if they're your subordinate, people might ask them in an interview process, hey, you worked for Jackie, you worked for Evelyn, what are they like? Well, confidentially, because, you're not in my food chain. She's a terror, right? So just know, I think that every interaction is a performance appraisal as you move through your career. And, however you would behave in front of your mom and your dad, you should just behave that way with everybody. They don't have to be your boss. They don't have to be, responsible for your payroll. They could be one of your employees. Treat people like you want to be treated, right? When people are looking for help, help them. Don't ignore them and tell them you don't have time. Later in life, when there's somebody and you're somebody, but they're a more important somebody, they will remember how you were there. I mean, and I got to tell you, I didn't realize that for probably the first 20 years of my career. I was just too busy getting ahead and moving fast. And in that process, you step on a lot of people. And your success is all about other people, no matter how smart you are. So anyway, it's more of a generic comment on this one, but I just wanted to get that out there, Jackie.
Very good advice.
Okay.
Really good advice.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. Some carry over from the last one on the special projects. One of them was, when others are asking us, to take on an extra assignment, how do we advocate for ourselves through the process?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's
so that they see our work and make sure that, we're opening up opportunities for ourselves.
Right. So, and it goes back to this thing, don't campaign. There was many years ago coming up in my career, I was doing some pretty good work, but I didn't know that people noticed. And I didn't notice that there was a flaw in my DNA, that I kind of went out of my way to make sure that others knew what I was doing. And at the time, the CIO of the company, I was getting a new assignment. I was taking over international. I was becoming the international group CIO, I guess, for UPS. And they took me out to dinner. And they gave me this whole lecture about humility. I had no idea what this lecture was about. And eventually, the discussion came to, you do really good stuff, let your work speak for itself. So I think the one thing is, people that are doing good work and making good contributions, people already notice that. However, there's a lot of ways to make your interests known and your personal restrictions known, right? Like, I have an elder care issue, I can't travel right now. Or I have a desire to be on a project. Today, a lot of companies have portals, Workday, et cetera. It's very important to be very clear about the experiences that the humans that manage you don't know, and the things that you desire to put them in the portal. So that when these opportunities come up, somebody's going to run a report to say, hey, project management, hey, leading a new product, and your name will come up. But the other thing is to have very transparent discussions with your manager, because your manager is trying to survive. But your manager needs to, if they're a good manager, they need to understand you, what motivates you, and where you want to go. And together you need to have a plan. Now, going back to the very first question, if you can't have a good career discussion about what you desire, and if any of these opportunities come up, can you please throw my name in with your manager? Well, that's a reason to pivot, because it's obvious that you don't have a good working relationship with your manager. And but there are managers out there that aren't really good either. They don't really take the time to understand their people and talk to them. So it's your career, not their career. They only care about their career. So you need to make it known what you'd like to do. And you have to make it known, especially when you're having a career discussion about, hey, what's next? Or if you're in one of these portals, by citing your actual experience, right? Not, hey, I'd really like to become a vehicle electrification guru because they make a lot of money. Okay, but the company needs one that can actually do the job. So how can you create value? So I think you got to show that how you can create value, but don't be shy. You really need to make your desires known and to make your skills that people don't see known. Because without that, you're going to just fall into the sea of humans that don't get picked.
And these other two questions are very closely related. One had talked about they had actually become the mercenary as, a consultant for their organization. And they wanted to know, how do they get into corporations? So when they fall into that, how do you get out of that? And the other person was saying they were at a smaller company where there weren't, that many opportunities that were available. And so how do they pivot outside of their company?
Yeah, in a smaller company, what's interesting is that everybody kind of knows what's going on and knows all the jobs that are going on, because there's only 40 of you, there's only 50 of you, there's only 100 of you. And it's very easy to raise your hand when you see something that you think you have the skill to take on, to say, look, I know we're not hiring somebody for that. Hey, I'll take that on. I think in a smaller company, it's much easier. This woman that I started to mentor this week, one of the things we talked about was go to a startup as the chief marketing officer, because you've done all the boxes in marketing. Because the moment you're on the staff, you will be raising capital with the CEO. You will be out on the street with them, or you'll be in the meetings trying to get money in. You will be on sales calls with the chief revenue officer, because there's only like 4 of you at the top and you all need to be at every meeting, right? You will be interviewing some firm to do your financials, because the 4 of you don't know finance, right? So you get that acumen right there and you get out of it. In a larger company, I kind of fell in that for a while with a former leader where I was doing all the mercenary projects. And to be honest with you, and they were all good projects and they were all visible, and you were like, hey, you know what I did? And you do 4 of those, but then the rest of the leadership team doesn't see all of your work. So it goes back to those career developments. It's very important that the organization understands that your desire is to do something that is different, that this was a valuable experience and rounded you out, but now it's time to get back into what I would call in line again. Because the people that are in your function, when you get back in line, you're differentiated, but if you're not in the function and you're out here, they may not be talking about you when the next opportunity comes up. So again, it's more about you being, without being negative, without being, in a positive way, asking for the change. If you don't ask for it, if you're doing a really good job being a mercenary, hey, look, if I'm a CEO and I have 1,000 problems and you're solving 4 of them, I'm not thinking about these 4 anymore, and I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking about these other 1,000 problems. So that's the curse of doing really good work. If you do it, you're noiseless, nobody thinks about you. That's why at that moment, and nobody's going to want to move you because, like, hey, that's working. I'm not going to break it. So you have to raise your hand and say, look, it's time. And I've had to do that. And in the older days, when you didn't tell your employer what you wanted and they told you, it was hard. But that's not the corporate world that we live in today. Today, we live in a world where your desires and what's important to you is just as important as the desires of the company, because together we all succeed. And leaders today know that. 15 years ago, they did not know that. They didn't understand the value of what was inside you. But it is today. So I just don't be shy, I guess, is the answer.
So if you're outside of the organization, Nick, though, like a consultant, and you've done your mercenary work within a specific organization, how do you develop that relationship, as a consultant to let your desires be known?
Well, most consultants have a skill set that inside employees don't have. They're like a chameleon, right? So if you're a consultant, you get dropped into a company, Pfizer, Macy's, UPS, IBM, to go work on a project. And very quickly, unlike an employee who says, hey, I'm new, I've got to learn the organization, it's going to take me 3 months to understand where the restroom is, right? The consultant has to learn who everybody is and how the organization operates and adopt the language, the acronyms, basically in the first week or 2, right, as they're onboarding into the company. And so consultants have a very good skill in actually learning an organization, learning who the players are, and building that network. And so they get street cred much quicker than internal people, to be honest with you, in some cases. What that also means is being open with that organization and saying, and the sponsor of whatever brought you in as a consultant, and saying, you know what? I've consulted a lot of different companies in your vertical and others. I really love the culture here. I really love the people. You guys know what I do. If there's an opportunity, and then you know what you learn in that conversation? Well, geez, we got 1,000 open recs and there's 3 that look like you, go apply. And believe me, we used to do it at UPS. We would have what we would call an IT staff augmentation. It was hard to hire somebody. So we'd have somebody come in and body shop a position in a Java programmer, a tester. And they would be with us for a while. And when positions opened up, if they fell in love with the culture, the person who was the sponsor of their position, their immediate manager, would say, hey, I got some requisitions opening, feel like applying? So if you're good at what you do and you build those relationships, it just happens.
Okay. All right. So we've kind of covered this slide a little bit, again, building relevant skills outside of your skill set. Nick talked a lot about that and some of the examples that he had to go through, especially with his movement to strategy group. So we'll keep going on it. Maheen, you can back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, we all know that you have to have a solid understanding of where you want to go. And I guess, Nick, the question for you is you gave an excellent example of a career pivot that was, vastly different than your core skill set. Do you have any others that would add some color to this?
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. So earlier we talked about an example I gave at UPS was someone who went from business development, is now in the running for the CEO. Well, one of the units they ran was the UPS store franchise. And it's a story of actually a peer of mine, a good friend of mine, but we had acquired a technology company at the same time that we acquired Mailbox, et cetera, the UPS store. And I was the IT person, if you will, that was part of the management committee that had oversight of this retail business. And the CIO wasn't good and we needed to replace them. And we replaced them with this individual who came from a tech company. This individual became a critical part of this new business, their acumen, they learned the franchising business. And eventually the CEO of the organization left the organization. The COO stepped up, but the individual had built an acumen, a relationship with, as the IT person with the franchise network and all, that the new CEO said, well, the only person on the staff that could succeed me is this individual. Well, that individual succeeded them and became the chief operating officer of this, one of the world's largest franchise chains. And then a few years later, the CEO retired. And then this individual became the CEO of the UPS Store franchise business and is now a name in franchising. But they just started out as some technical leader in some subsidiary where some other technical leader said, hey, that they worked for, said, hey, I got a job for you in San Diego, which is a high cost market, but it's sunny, in a business unit that we just acquired where everybody doesn't believe they've been acquired. You want to go work in this really highly treacherous environment? And they said, yes. And they were the only UPSer in the environment. Everybody else came from the acquisition. So it was kind of like an us and them thing. We got acquired. Oh my goodness, they don't understand our business. And this person muscled through all of this, learned the business, became part of the family, and became a peer to these seasoned franchise experts. In just a couple of years, eventually became their leader. And today, he just retired too. Another story of retirement. But the CFO of the unit, the person in charge of all the franchise relations with all the franchisees, are 40-year franchise professionals. They're still with UPS, by the way. They have said that working for that person had been a great experience because they were very well-rounded. They not only came from franchising, but they understood how to run a tech P&L, right? They also worked in an enterprise and had to guide the enterprise. Very interesting, right? No, not my story, somebody else's story, you know. But my story is a simple one. You know, I just pivoted from, you know, senior IT executive to venture capitalist and advisor. That is
running international operations.
Yeah, now it's, you know, that's a pivot, you know, having people call you, trying to understand how much of their cap table they have to give away. Where when I was at UPS in my role, we never did that. And that was a transformation. I purposely rebranded myself on the way out.
Well, that leads exactly to our next slide,
Oh.
which is improves your reputational brand, which is utmost important. So, you know, having broad and deep organizational knowledge and new skill sets, that is, I'm sorry, Evelyn, did you have a question?
Yeah. Yes, I do. We did have a question that came in that said, would you make any changes in your career strategy in light of the many working hybrids?
Yeah,
so many working hybrids. Yes.
Yeah, I would, you know, and I would tell you that the leaders of companies are in the office, right? And you know, I'm going to tell you two stories. It was UPS and Dell, because I was on a call with Michael Dell in like the beginning of COVID, right? And Dell's a manufacturing company. And Michael hadn't been to the headquarters. He was actually hosting meetings at his estate in Texas. And UPS is an operating company. And during COVID, UPS had 500,000 employees at work each and every day delivering packages and stuff for you and I. And all the back office people were at home. Well, not all the back office people, because the executive committee came to work every day. And the people that reported them came to work every day. And we interacted. And so I would say that in a hybrid world, you do have to be seen in the workplace. You know, culture and innovation doesn't happen over Zoom. It just doesn't. And so in a hybrid workplace, being at the meetings when you know that more people are going to be physical is important. Being at the events where you know you'll be able to interact with people is important, because people will see you in real life and not see you on the little screen. So I do think that that's seeing more people, not trying to be more on video, is very, very important. You know, if you're a doer and you're a single contributor, it's different. Hey, look, if I want to be the person that runs accounting reports for the rest of my career and I can do that at home, fine. But people won't notice you if they don't see you. And you're starting to see that happen. And so when we met with Michael, because they're a tech company, we were at work, Michael wasn't at work. And we said, what do you see in the future? And he said, well, we've always been 10% remote or teleworking. I see that when we come back, we might be 20%. But he said, we're a manufacturing company. How do I inspire the tens of thousands of people on the assembly line and the logistics facilities to manufacture this product when the leaders are absent? So I do think you have to be seen, and you have it in tech companies too. A lot of startups that I hang around with, they're at work. They haven't left. Most of the leaders of startups got freaked out over COVID because they're trying to build a culture and you can't build a culture remotely. And so during COVID, they were all getting on airplanes and they were meeting all the people they were hiring. They would spend a week with them and try to instill the values and culture and whatever the paradigms are they were creating in those businesses. So, I think physical doesn't get replaced, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Very important. And then, we had talked about this a while back during the formation of our first webinar, and how important it is in a hybrid environment to be present. And, the reality is, and I forget the statistics, I had researched it, but, the vast majority of the people that were present were men. And we're talking to, Women's Business Collaborative Group, which, we're encouraging, not only, getting into the office and being there and being present, because your counterparts are present. And that's so important. You have to be there. And I think we just had one comment in the chat box that basically says being at the meetings and events in IS is extremely important. And you're right. If they don't see you, they don't notice you. They may see you on a Zoom call, but when you're there in person and you can read the room and you can understand more of people's reactions, which you can't really see on a Zoom call, that's extremely important. So we're moving on to something you said before, Nick, which is about your brand, your reputational brand, which is important. So everything we've talked about up to this point, is lead you in a good direction for, pivoting to new roles and experiences and having those opportunities for advancement. But it also, your brand is you. It's you're taking the risk. You're having those experiences added to your professional resume. You're having those experiences be noticed by other people in the organization. And that's what you really want to have that at the top of your mind. You have to pivot with meaning and pivot to something that is going to improve your reputational brand and make you stand out and be, like Nick said, that person, the person that people talk about in the room. So I guess, Nick, you obviously have been involved in many, many executive decisions on who to put in what particular role for advancement, or who to put on an assignment that is a very important assignment that will help that person round out their skill set and build their reputational brand. Why do you think your reputational brand is so important?
I think it's a couple of things. And your reputational brand is multifaceted. It is the experiences that you talk about. So the things that I can do, right? I can replace a light bulb, I can fix a faucet, and I can paint. Good. We know you can do those things. But it's also your reputation as a human in the workplace, your work ethic that people notice, your interactions with people and how you treat people, right? It's no different than what people tell their kids about social media, and you can go out and look at your own social media reputation score. But the other facets that surround you as a human being is what is a big part of your brand. So you could have all these great experiences, but if you're about you and people know they only care about them and their career, they don't care about the company. They just want to make that move because of them, because they just wear their career on their shoulder. Or that's the person that yells at everybody. Or that's the person that we talk to that has that side real estate business that always used to tell us in the break room how they couldn't believe they could get 5 hours of real estate done in an 8-hour day when they were supposed to be on the time card with the company. I do think that personal reputation also is a factor. And you look for people that have the energy, the bandwidth, as well as the breadth of experience to take you forward. And you also, the one thing I've learned now in venture capital that has been very interesting is, and I hear all these venture capitalists say it, is it's a pleasure to advise CEOs that listen and take feedback. And so leaders understand that you have all these experiences on your resume, but you've only been around for a few years. You don't have these others, and they're always willing to give you a shot if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to change. And I see that now with entrepreneurs. They think that, I invented this thing and I know. Well, yeah, you invented this thing, but you don't know how to grow a business. You don't know how to raise capital. You don't know how to sell. But it's a really cool widget, though, that nobody will ever hear about because you didn't listen to the feedback that you just got. So leaders, the human interaction I have a peer. I got to be careful. I won't say their role. I met with them the other day. They're an active president at UPS. But they said this. They said, look, 30% of your being chosen for a job is your skill and ability. 30%, 40% is just luck. You're in the right place at the right time. 3 people had the skill and ability over the years, but today is the first time the position exists. And it didn't exist 5 years ago when I had the skill and ability. So I think there was no job for me to go to. And then the third is the people relations. And so when he added it together, he said 70% is people relations and luck. The other 30% is your skill and ability. And you know what? It resonated with me. And I wanted to bring it up here today because that's that brand reputation. It's the 30% of I'm really good at my craft and look at the things that I've done. But I also culturally fit. I can communicate with you. I'm not a drag on you. I'm not giving you problems. I'm solving you problems. It's all those things the soft things that people tell you in your career. But that stuff's important. I mean, think about it when you were when people were in school, there was always that person that everybody, like when they spoke, you rolled your eyes, or you always knew that weird things were going to come out of their mouth. You don't want to be that person. But you know what? You could be that person, and it's a blind spot for you. So you really got to get sensitive to your blind spots and your brand there.
And the soft skills do matter so much.
They do. It's all about communication. Look, you can be the best CFO, but if you can't generate a story to the board on the financials that we can digest in 3 minutes, I don't really want to go to page 72 on the finance report.
Right.
I'm not a finance person.
Right.
I'm an IT person by trade and acumen, right? But I understand business, so give it to me in my language. Yeah. So communication is very important. But people, you know what? People remember you over a career. And if you were crazy and wild when you came out of the university and you calmed down, but they didn't interact with you for 5 years, they think you're the crazy and wild person. And then if people meet, they go, is that the same person that does keg stands with beer at corporate parties at night? No, they're married with a child now. I don't know, I haven't seen that. That's what happens, right? Because corporations are like elephants, we never forget, You know at UPS, they still think I have hair, Jackie. Believe that.
That's a good one. That was a good one. Well, we're actually in the last minute. This time has flown by. So, I guess we're going to wrap it up and maybe ask you to answer 1 or 2 more questions. But, obviously, we brought this topic to you today because we thought it was very important in terms of advancement and also, making sure that you're happy and satisfied in your own career and doing the things that you love and you have a passion for. So, again, staying within your own vertical, as Nick has said before, isn't going to really get you that visibility. It's going to keep you where you are. So spread your wings, open yourself to other experiences, take that opportunity as it comes to you. And, it's going to take you further. So we do have another question. And we have some that came in before. So I don't know if we have time. Maheen, can we go ahead and? Okay. Evelyn, why don't you go ahead and ask one of the last questions, and then we'll wrap it up after that, because it is noon.
Oh, okay. Okay, this was continuing with the hybrid world where someone said that, you know, a lot of companies nowadays are primarily remote, where 80 to 90% of them may already be remote. And so how can you still be seen in that environment so that people know, you know, the great work that you're actually performing?
Yeah, so, you know, to the point I made earlier, I think, you know, this is a great question because it says 80 to 90%. There are people coming together, right? And then depending on your level, it's about your work group and being present in your work group, because it's your immediate manager that really drives your near-term career, right? And if that work group is remote, then that's okay, right? But if you're going to broaden yourself and you need to be seen by the rest of the group, that's not, you know, it's above your management or tangential to your group, it's really hard to do that on Zoom. And I'm seeing a lot of people, you know, that are leaving their jobs for two reasons. One is they got hired during COVID and they don't feel the culture. You know, I don't feel it. I don't like it there. They're not embracing me. Well, they're not embracing you because they can't, because it's a Zoom call. And the other side is people are saying, you know what, I'm not getting the exposure I need. So to be honest with you, I don't, you know, there's three types of companies. You're going back to work, think Tesla, think the financial institutions in New York City, JP Morgan, et cetera. We're hybrid. Depending on your role, we're going to have a place that you can go to. I would say go there. And then the third is what UPS is at with management, just to let you know, if you look at the table of companies, which is optional. And what's going on there is, I just talked to two of the folks that used to work for me. All of the directors and above are all in the office. And then all the people that are running things of value, they're coming in and out of the office. So in an 80, 90% world, where there's an opportunity to go to the building in your geography that your company is at, go once in a while. Just go and bear the traffic and don't wear shorts and flip-flops, you know.
I mean. Okay. We did have another question that came in, a couple that came in earlier, and I'll just ask this one because it was very interesting to me as well. I'd like to hear your response. Is there, you know, so there's what they actually looked at is there a pivot that you took in your career that you wish you hadn't taken? And if so, you know, what and why?
Yeah, I mean, hey, first of all, that's a great question. And so the pivot that I've taken a lot of pivots, right? I would say that it's a personal story. So I grew up below the poverty line. My parents had no idea what education was. And they were just happy when they learned that I got a job flipping burgers at Nathan's. And coming from a Greek immigrant family, working at the grill is the senior executive job. And my parents were proud of me, right? So I decided on my own that I was going to pivot and I was going to nobody was encouraging me to go to school. And I went to school. And I came out of the university and I was working for a company that was very good. And I got very frustrated with the manager that I worked for. But it was a very good company and I really liked it there. But as I said earlier, most people pivot because they don't like their manager. And so I pivoted and I went to a company where I walked into the company. And the day I walked in and got hired, they told me they were going through a downsizing. And you know, what I learned was if I really like the place and think I have a good career, I don't like the manager above me, well, the good news is it's a company. Eventually that changes. I didn't have the stamina to wait it out. And I think I made, in that moment, I probably made a big mistake by leaving. And it took me a year probably to get back on track, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, we do have a couple of other questions, but I want to be, you know, respectful of time. So Jackie, please let me know if we continue or if we stop.
Well, I'm not sure how many people are still on. It's 5 after or 12:04. Okay. So I think maybe we should wrap it up and just thank Nick for all his exceptional insights and the personal stories. Wonderful job getting all kinds of accolades on the chat box, Nick. Yeah, I really appreciate, my colleague, my friend, coming here to share his experiences with you, because he is the perfect example of what it means to, uh, move upward in a major way through career pivoting and recognizing when to do that and how to do it. And he's continuing to do it. So thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it. And, looking forward to maybe another webinar at some point.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Well, Jackie, thank you very much. And I think, Jackie had told me about this group after I retired, and her leaning into this group. And I think it's great work. And, I think groups like this are important because I think people don't really understand how to move through a career. It's not something you're taught.
One of the important things that we didn't mention about your career was that you were the chairman for the Women's Business Resource Group at UPS.
That's true. Yeah. Along with, yeah.
I was just going to let everyone know there was a couple of folks that came in and asked about the recording. It will be posted on the WBC website tomorrow. So just for the folks that wanted to know about the recording.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody out in the audience, for joining us. I heard we had a very robust audience, and I really appreciate your comments and your questions. And again, special thank you to Nick for such wonderful insights and a great webinar.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're back.
Maheen, are we back? Oh, well.